Hello, and welcome to another Zepto Connect virtual fireside chat. I'm Kim Yan. I'm a customer relationship manager here at Zepto and your host for today. Thank you so much for joining what should be a terrific session with three expert voices who you meet shortly. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land I'm on here in Melbourne and recognise their ongoing connection to the lands, waters, skies, and communities of this region. I'd also like to extend that acknowledgement and respect to all the lands where you're all joining on from today. So, we're here to discuss the impact and potential of one of our favourite solutions here at Zepto, real-time payments. While Pay2 is generating excitement right now and interest is growing in confirmation of payee, real-time payouts have been delivering real-time satisfaction for their merchants and customers for years now. But before we dive into that with our expert panel, just a bit of housekeeping for everyone. Zepto Connect events are enhanced by audience engagement and participation. So we would love to hear from you today. Towards the top right of your screen, you'll see some icons. There's a chat box represented by speech marks. You can post general comments and praise for today's speakers there. Below that is the Q&A icon. You can pop questions you'd like me to ask the panel. We'll be monitoring that feed in the background and we'll get to as many questions as we can. If you think that someone has a great question and you'd like to answer it, you can upvote it by clicking the up arrow icon beneath it. So for best results, keep the questions in the Q&A channel, comments, shout outs and emojis in the chat channel. Easy. So it's time to meet the talent. Real-time payouts are a proven winner across industries as a driver of loyalty, great customer satisfaction, and stakeholder experience. Across our customer base, we power real-time payments to vets, quick consumer refunds, investment and wagering payouts, loan disbursements, insurance claims, gig worker wages, and a lot more. So for the next 45 minutes, we'll explore why this solution is a driver of innovation, operational success, customer satisfaction, and with today's speakers, I am delighted to introduce to you now. So firstly, welcome Phil Wilson-Brown. Phil is a co-founder and CEO of pet health and insurance business Fetch. Phil has 20 years of insurance experience running large-scale operations and more disruptive plays in Australia and overseas. He's headed up IAG's satellite business, launching new business models to market, building a startup culture, and running IAG's largest partner business. Prior to that, he was MD of More Than, one of UK's leading personal lines of insurers, and one of the largest pet insurers in that market as well. Next, welcome Joel. Joel is a co-founder and head of product at Refundid, an Aussie fintech transforming the e-commerce returns and refunds experience. Refundid offers a full suite of post-purchase solutions that remove uncertainty around returns, including instant exchange and refunds. Joel has been instrumental to Refundid's user experience and customer acquisition journey. With deep experience in e-commerce, Joel has an intimate knowledge of pain points around refunds. Refundid has partnerships with hundreds of retail brands such as Country Road Group, Culture Kings, Witchery, Sea Folly, Frank Green, and Princess Polly. Next, we welcome Ian Lennie. Lennie is a co-founder and board chair at Zepto. With a background in economics, sport, and adventure, Ian's unconventional journey into fintech began with a one-way ticket from the US to Australia and a fateful meeting with Zepto's future co-founders on the beaches of Byron Bay. Ian is a passionate advocate for customer-centric success, and Ian continues to shape Zepto's strategic direction, championing our culture of curiosity, teamwork, and technical excellence. So all of this makes him the perfect Zepto expert voice for today's discussion. So let's kick things off with an icebreaker question for everyone. As a child, what was the first thing you bought with your own money and how did you pay for it? And we might start with Lennie.
Yeah, it was a question that we were fed this question ahead of time. So it wasn't hard for me to remember this because it was kind of like a true childhood memory. And I remember finding a quarter back in the States. So 25 cents for those of you who don't want to do the math. And walking over to news agents and just buying one of those little like lolly bins where you can just take a handful and go and get it. So 25 cents back then, because I'm old, probably got me some nice little candy, but I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, found a quarter, maybe a little bit younger, walked over to the news agent and bought my first sweets all to myself. Of course it was sweets. It wasn't anything. I wasn't like a savvy investor from a young age and put it into a bank account or anything, but it was pretty straightforward, straight cash, and away we go. I'm sure we're probably all of the same age where all of our experiences are going to be cash, right?
Well, let's find out. Joel?
Yeah, I mean, mine probably wasn't. I mean, I was trying to think back to my absolute first purchase, but the most memorable one that I can remember, the oldest back, is I used to be very obsessed with remote controlled cars. Like that was my fixation. I remember I saved up enough money to purchase my first one, and it was a great experience. But I ended up plugging it in incorrectly one time and it was on fire. So that was the end of that experience. But that was my first purchase that I remember. That was quite a memorable one on my experience.
What about you, Phil?
Yeah, they're good, aren't they? Look, it's definitely cash, and it's probably actually coins, not notes. I think notes were something you were kind of pretty excited about getting your hands on. It's a pretty difficult question. It's a long time ago for me. It's possible. I remember going and buying Smurfs at the BP station, rugby league trading cards, and Matchbox cards. A bit like Joel up at the news agent, those little tiny boxes.
Yeah. It's a shame because my kids, I'm sure their first purchases was a tap. It's just not the same. It's not the same experience.
I still have the box that every time I got like $5, I'd put it in a little box in my room, and I've still got that box from when I was a kid.
Is it full?
Every time I get cash, and yeah, it's very empty, but not much.
I mean,
cash.
that's vintage now. So
yeah.
So let's get started. I mean, Joel, Phil would love to set the scene for everyone here. And Phil, we might start with you. Fetch launched with a fresh take on pet insurance in Australia. And I've got 2 cats myself, so I'm interested to, curious to see what you say. Could you tell us what gap you saw in the market when you first founded the business?
Of course, I see Susie Slingsby's on as well today, and I've been looking after her pets too, so which is great. Look, we're not actually trying to build a fresh pet insurance business. We're really building a pet health business, and what we really want to do is actually help nutty pet parents like us look after their pets better. But we're starting with what we think is the biggest issue, which is affordability of healthcare. I think there's a lot more you can do for your pets, but it's costing a lot more. And in particular, two of the gaps we kind of saw, coming back to your question, one was there's been obviously a massive growth in pet ownership, and Australia is probably leading the world in that space, but a real shift in demographics to younger pet ownership. So people tend to be kind of, moving in together in their early or mid 20s, and they're not having children, they're having a dog or a cat instead. And they're much more engaged with their pet's health. And then we've been around pet health and pet insurance for a long time, and we saw a few issues with the products that we really thought we could solve and help out this new demographic of pet parents.
Yeah, awesome. And you've worked across, you've got so much experience in the insurance space as well, in the UK as well as here. What kind of lessons, did you bring from your insurance experience into Fetch, and how has that shaped how you sort of operate today?
We haven't got that long today on the webinar. I think there's probably 2 things that insurers really struggle with. The first is, and a lot of companies have this too, but legacy tech platforms. And I think in insurance, they don't get much more legacy than some of the platforms people are on, and they're built for standardization rather than innovation in product. And so I think that we've built the tech stack ourselves because we wanted to build the product the way we wanted to build the product. And then probably the second thing, which is a bit of an insurance-y one, but even if you pay for your insurance on a monthly basis, it's an annual product, and it really means innovation in insurance is very hard. So if you insure with me on the 31st of December, I don't actually see you till the 31st of December next year, and that's the product. And so in the interim, if you actually want to innovate and give customers new things, it's pretty hard to do that. You have to put a new product in marketplace or wait for 12 months. So it really stifles innovation. And so we've kind of built Fetch as a genuine subscription model, which means we can continuously innovate in the product. And if we have an idea one month, it means that everyone gets it the next month when we roll it out. And that really differentiates our speed to market to kind of keep making the product better.
Yeah, love it. And I think would love to hear from you a little bit later about, where you see it heading into the future as well. But we might jump into Joel next. So Refundid is a standout Aussie fintech story. You guys help customers get instant refunds and returns. And I do a little bit of online shopping myself. So, what inspired you to start it, and what makes your approach unique in the post-purchase space?
Yeah, it's a interesting one. So I used to be in e-commerce myself, kind of as my own retailer back in the day, and there was a huge issue around returns management and returns processing from a merchant side. You deal with stuff overseas, you deal with cross-border transactions, domestic transactions, and the time that it took to ship the item overseas back to Australia would just be significant. And then personally, I had an experience as a shopper at one of our retailers now, where I waited about 6 weeks for my refund. And so that kind of personal experience alongside with the experience as the retailer back in the day combined together helped me, come to this idea with the other co-founders in the team to basically facilitate an instant refund solution for our customers. So basically providing that solution to customers where they can get their refund as soon as they lodge the return before they even send it back. And basically taking the approach of a customer-focused returns experience. Historically, returns had been a very retailer-driven motive that was suppressed and, very not liked, I guess, by the retailer, and they wouldn't really make it easy. But as kind of COVID hit and e-com became even more prevalent, retailers started to realize that optimizing their returns actually would help make the customer experience better and actually help retention. So we kind of piggybacked off of that kind of concept and built a great instant refund solution. And then from there, when we did start building out that financial tech part of the platform, we realized that there's a bigger scope of this project. There's the ability to service retailers across all returns, not just instantaneous returns. So we expanded the product to be kind of a full end-to-end return solution for retailers. And we now support about 350 Aussie retailers processing their returns.
Awesome. Yeah, I do remember those days, with 6 weeks of returns. It's very painful, and it's certainly shifted, since then. So, talking about some of your, 300, did you say 350 retail brands, how do you think Refundid has impacted the way, they think about customer experience as well?
I think there's been a big shift for a lot of the retailers we work with when it comes to a retention piece, and how they've all kind of realized that returns is the optimal way to retain a customer. I think the upper funnel part of an experience is so heavily optimized. You've got more payment methods, you've got different style guides, you've got loyalty, rewards, you've got everything that kind of helps to push the customer down the funnel and keep them shopping. But the post-purchase is what can make or break the experience. So I think when retailers have kind of delved into the idea of returns and how important it is to optimize it. I mean, instant refunds is one way, but just having a clean and concise returns experience has become what a lot of these retailers fixate on, because they know that it's an easy way to retain a customer that should just be the norm, but helps them stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's huge, that retention piece in like such a competitive e-commerce space.
Yeah.
Look, I'd love to dive into the real-time payments and innovation space now. So I want to throw to you, Lennie. Let's talk about the real-time payments ecosystem. Zepto has been a pioneer in real-time payouts. And as a Zepto co-founder, you've seen payouts evolve from legacy direct credit to always-on real-time payments on the NPP. And, from your vantage point at Zepto, what's been the biggest shift in mindset that businesses need to make to move from those sort of, traditional settlement methods to a real-time payout system via the NPP? And if you can, feel free to share a use case or two.
Yeah, no problem. So from my vantage points or my perception, you said that I'm very customer centric in the intro, which is 100% true, is the shift in mindset is exactly what Refundid and Fetch are doing, is utilizing what is like a commodity payment method, or just the ability to send money from point A to point B, but build it into their customer product offering, or how they deliver a service to their clients, and either differentiate their product or enhance a customer experience to give customer satisfaction, retention, and so on and so forth. And I'll give the first example that really kicked in for us at Zepto as the NPP started to roll out. Was NPP was released in stages, as we all know. It started out with real-time payouts, then went to PayID, so the creation of an alias so you could receive payments in real time, which is then, companies like ourselves then were able to adapt that and bring that into a business environment. And then the final two pieces that have come since now, our final piece is Pay2 and now COP through AP+, all enhancing the customer experience of the payment mechanism. We provide that really well through our APIs, really robust capabilities, but it's the merchants that we deal with that provide that customer satisfaction layer. And the first one we really saw was in the lending space, where you would have a lot of lenders dealing with consumers who needed money for whatever reasons, whether it was just discretionary spending purposes, or whether they had an accident and needed to fix their car or whatever, but they needed the money quickly. And so they could be approved for a loan or refinance a loan and get the payment of which they were from their lender in real time. So it served a really key requirement for the consumer and the relationship with their merchant. The merchant could give their customer what the money they wanted instantly. They didn't have to wait a day or two and for the direct credit to settle. They didn't have to wait for file uploads and batch payment processings to happen. And we saw that the first lenders who were able to adopt this and push this out were able to gain significant market share over their competitors, simply because of they're giving a higher level of customer satisfaction. It wasn't based on cost. It wasn't based on marketing. It was based on the customers, like, I can get what I want and when I want it. And that is a prevailing trend in the entire world right now. It's the instant gratification of wanting to know that things have been successful when they believe it to be done in this digital world that we live in. So the real-time payment mechanism started. We saw that in the lending. It then moved to digital wallets, where people wanted to be able to pull down from their wallets in real time. So if you can think of cryptocurrencies and or gambling, the gaming environment that we work in, they want to draw down on their winnings instantly. We then saw it in the gig economy, where we had cab companies wanting to be able to pay their employees after they finish a shift on demand on a weekend. So previously couldn't do that, but their employees worked hard all week and they want the money to be able to buy their kid an ice cream or whatever, take their wife out to dinner. And so they were able to get their money in real time. It was all centered around providing capability and a consumer experience uplift to their customers. And that's what's driven the adoption of many of these real-time payment mechanisms. It's now starting to expand in other areas, which we can get into later if you want. But in terms of bill payments, I never thought that people wanted to pay their bills quickly. But there's definitely ways that billers can now incentivize their customers to utilize faster payments to get paid quickly. So it all can be utilized, but it does center around providing customers with an uplift of experience, which I'm sure that Phil and Joel can really attest to in the products and the businesses that they've built around.
Yeah, I mean, Phil, Joel, happy for you to jump in here. I'm sure you'd resonate with what Ian has just been saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm able to jump in here. I think the entire crux behind our platform was to be customer centric, like a differentiator between other kind of platforms in the space. And I think we even get instances where customers complain saying, we haven't seen our refund yet. And we're like, here it is. And it went in so fast, they didn't actually see it go in. It happens regularly. And so that experience, obviously we don't like negative experiences, but the idea of being able to satisfy those customers instantly and, them actually kind of going so fast they don't even see it is something really, really cool. And not something that's kind of been done in the space, which is definitely, to your point, kind of the first mover advantage.
Yeah, there's some great examples there. It was actually for us as being pretty critical to the whole proposition, because pet insurance is a pretty unusual product in insurance, and that as a customer at the vet, you actually pay for the service up front, and then the vet kind of helps you lodge the claim afterwards. And so you've got this kind of, A, you've got an uncertainty about whether you're going to be covered, and B, you've got an uncertainty about whether you're going to get, how much money you're going to get back. And so we built a solution that allowed us to actually check coverage while the customer's at the vet, and that takes away the uncertainty. But we actually needed a solution that allowed us to pay. What we wanted to do is actually pay the bill straight there, direct to the vet, which was really difficult to do. And you kind of go, does it really matter? But I think for a bunch of people, sometimes a vet bill could be 5-10 grand, and people just don't have that money lying around. So it creates a huge amount of stress for the customer about whether they're going to get the money back, or whether they can find it in the first place, and a huge amount of stress for the vet, who's going, well, can the customer actually afford the care that I actually want to recommend? And so the real-time payments has been critical to us, because effectively what we can do is we can approve the coverage while the customer's at the vet. They pay us their excess in app, and then we pay the full amount to the vet before the customer leaves the clinic effectively, and saves them having to go deep into their pockets or trying to find the money to get the cover done. So I think we hadn't really thought about it too much, and that it would be hard to do until we actually got the proposition idea seemed great, but actually finding a solution to get the real-time payments done was actually was probably a bit of a blocker for us at first.
What's the feedback you get from your customers on that feature compared to, is there a lot of comparison from your customers to previous pet insurance or other insurance that they've dealt with, and then like, wow, that worked quickly? Like,
look,
did you get feedback?
It's at the moment, I'd say, Ian, it's the adoption's reasonably low, because customers are used to going to the vet and paying $300 and then lodging the claim. They can do it really fast with us in app. I think it's not so much the volume at the moment, it's the situations that really make a difference, because it's the customers that I was just referring to. Someone's gone in and they've got a 10 grand thing, and I haven't got $10,000 to pay for this. And previously you were stuck, right? The vet's going, well, I can't do the procedure if you can't pay for the procedure. And they're going, well, I've got insurance. And the vet's going, well, I don't know if you're going to be covered, so you had to work it out. So I think it's for the people for whom it really matters now, that emotional support and the ability to deliver that payment is massive. I think it'll become the way that actually the whole product works down the track. So I think it'll get momentum, and it is getting momentum now. But for me, even if you're doing a handful of those cases where you've taken that stress out of the system for people at what's a really awful time, it's been great, and that feedback's been fantastic.
Yeah, you mentioned getting stuck, and we saw this early on in the piece when we started processing payments. Well, we want to process all year round, but with BACs, for example, over what's coming up in a few months' time, the Christmas period and the New Year's period, you can get up to 5 days where the banks aren't processing payments over BACs. Right. And that 5-day period is if you're expecting a paycheck or some sort of income coming in from a supplier and so on and so forth, it can make a huge difference to a business's operating capacity or an individual's ability to continue on their daily life. So, and these are the flexibility it can provide is great to enhance a customer's experience or an individual's experience.
Totally
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely. I'd love to get some of your thoughts, everyone here. If we look into the future, like 3 to 5 years, we've talked about how payments have sort of shifted from that 3 to 5 day settlement to real time, and we've seen changes in consumer behavior and retailer behaviors, like Joel, as well. If we want to look ahead into the next 3 to 5 years, how do you see the role of returns, or even just e-commerce, the industry in general? How do you see that evolve in this space?
I think it's going to become more of an expectation around that instantaneous gratification. I think that you've got, especially in the Aussie ecosystem, there's so much more competition. You've got your Amazons in the world now, where Amazon literally, you drop it off at the post office and your money's in your account straight away. They give you credit straight away. The Iconic does, similar types of experiences. And I think the whole instantaneous gratification from a consumer lens is going to become more of an expectation over the next 5 to 10 years. I think it already kind of is on that projection, but I think just the way the economy's at, and similar to kind of what Phil said about consumer, financial positions and all that, some customers can't afford to be out of pocket for 2 to 3 weeks. Some customers who bought something, maybe they don't like it and they need the money back. The 2 to 3 week time frame is way too long. So I think as it becomes more and more kind of common across retailers, it's going to become an expectation for the consumer, and it's going to head to the point where customers will probably look out to shop at stores who offer some level of instant gratification when that return is created. So I definitely think that the e-com space is heading in that direction.
That's so right, Joe. I think it's across industries, isn't it? I can't think of a reason why, certainly in our space, that you should go to the vet and have coverage and then potentially have to wait, weeks to be reimbursed. And I'm not saying that's just the financial system that's doing that. There's a whole process that's been kind of geared to that level of timing around it. And so I think that expectation's changed. I think the other thing that'll drive it is, I think it definitely feels a case that there's a disposable income kind of crunch especially for younger people around it. So I think one of the things that'll drive it for what Joel said is actually not just their expectations, but actually the needs. And then I think probably then it creates a bit of regulatory impetus as well to make sure that actually the whole system is actually moving quicker. And if you can make sure that the security is good, and I think that's one thing we haven't touched on yet, the security's got to be great. If the security is good, then we should definitely be embracing it.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer in this space, and I think Australia's in such a lucky position to have such advanced payment tech. I mean, there's so many regions around the world who haven't even gotten close to where we are, and I think it's a no-brainer to embrace it as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And the consumer, there's nothing quite like consumer demand to make legacy systems quickly for enterprise, but spring to action and start affecting change. So that it's driven by even the social media platforms and instant gratification feedback loops to make people just want to get things done quickly and efficiently. And I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the current economic state for many people is that the disposable income is at premium. And if you're choosing to spend your hard-earned money with whatever brand that you want to choose it for, and it doesn't work out, like you want your money back as quickly as possible if you're ever going to shop there again. So it's a pretty tight feedback loop, really, that should drive change and drive people to choose companies that are embracing putting the customer experience first and the customer's money first.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that instant gratification mindset is, something that's growing, and we've got a question here from Emily. Thank you. That question is, do you think that the instant gratification mindset will also apply to loyalty in e-commerce? And this might be one for you, Joel, but anyone, please step in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from our side, it's a no-brainer when it comes to loyalty. We see it be huge from a loyalty driver with the customers. Instant refunds is obviously one aspect, but there's just so many kind of parts of instant gratification from an e-commerce user journey that will determine loyalty. For us, normally what we see, and this is kind of what we record with retailers, is a retailer, when they compare just the normal refund that goes back 2 to 3 weeks later versus an instant refund, they'll see a repurchase rate normally double. So for example, if a normal refund back to original payment method, has a 20% repurchase rate, meaning every $100 they issue out, $20 comes back in. Instant refunds will tend to have a 40% repurchase rate. So every $100 that goes out, $40 will come back in. So that instant gratification, it's a great from a customer experience perspective, but if you're looking at returns, for example, the customer doesn't always want to return. They sometimes just want a different size. They sometimes want a different product, and given the opportunity to get that other size or other product, they will take it. And if you're getting your refund straight away, you're still in the mindset of shopping again. So the loyalty will be there. They'll come back, they'll shop again. But if you're only getting it 2 to 3 weeks later, by then you've got new bills, you've got new things come up in life, it's suddenly back of your mind, and it's no longer something that you can focus on. So naturally, we do see that level of instant gratification will kind of push up that loyalty side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even just looking at that repurchase rate is huge. That's a huge, change. And Phil, maybe that's also a question for you. And maybe Fetch is still sort of new, but drawing from your experience, do you see that there's a real sort of recurring customer element of it? When it comes to real-time payments.
Look, it's a funny business model in some ways, because we certainly know that for us, if we've helped sort out issues with your cat or dog, people are extremely loyal, right? It's a very emotional. It's odd to say that insurance is an emotional purchase, but actually, what we deliver is not insurance. It's actually, it's kind of getting your pet back into the space you want them to be. And so it's a very emotional purchase. And when we do a great job, it drives a huge amount of loyalty. I think the payments piece is just for us part of the proposition. Really what we want, the way we think about our whole customer experience is we're all kind of bonkers pet parents ourselves, and we go kind of, what would we want? And so I think, the payments piece is a really important part of that, going, actually, how do you take the stress away in a stressful situation? And that's what the real-time payouts does. So the faster we can actually get the money back to people, if they're covered, right? So don't muck around with actually getting the payment back to them. The faster we can do that, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can, just looking at the comments here, people have an opposite reaction if they've got, if they don't have a great experience, with their pet insurance. Ian, I'd like to pick your brain. If you look into the future, which and looking at the ecosystem as a whole, which sectors are reaping the immediate benefits of real-time payout capabilities, and which ones do you reckon which industries or companies that might surprise us as the next wave of adopters when it comes to real-time payments?
Well, I think I did one of these interviews with Ben before that got plastered all over the internet, where I was like, e-commerce will be the last to adopt real-time pay-ins. And so I was famously very, very wrong on that, whereas Pay2 has been getting great traction already in its earliest stages as an e-commerce provider. For the merchant, it provides various benefits in terms of a connection to the customer that's very quick, seamless, and a cheaper way of making payments to them, of which they can pass back to their customer in forms of incentive discounts and loyalty points. So I see that as something that's going to catch the industry by surprise a little bit, that Pay2 could actually hit e-commerce a lot quicker than expected, as opposed to what they believe it would be, which was just a standard recurring payment mechanism. I think that we've seen some, at an industry level, that's not very sexy or exciting. We're going to see the Payday Super coming into and payroll, where you're going to see real-time payments really affecting that space. And this can be from SMEs up to enterprise, doing your own pay runs versus using platforms, but you'll be able to pay your customers on demand in real time. And again, your employees on demand and in real time, which is a form of loyalty to your own employees and satisfaction for the people that you hold dearest as an employer. So I think that, Pay2 will start really creeping into the mindset as the liability framework comes to fruition in December, when the banks are very comfortable with who's responsible for what. I'd like to see that then translate into places like insurance for premiums, where the collection of funds starts happening by Pay2 as opposed to direct debit or card processing for a very recurring static payment type scenario. Pay2 is a great option. But overall, I think it will just permeate as the ecosystem settles. And, it is a new payment method. We've had 40 plus years of being trained on card processing. So it should take a couple of years to really start permeating into the general mindset of how to adopt this payment method. But it's coming. The use cases are across the board. from e-commerce to utilities to insurance to everything, that it has significant impact on customer satisfaction and significant impact on a merchant's back office capabilities. So it's coming, it's permeating, but I'll reverse my statement from a few years ago and say e-commerce might be the dark horse. So I can be wrong in both instances. And
You're a bit late, Ian.
What?
You're a bit late.
Yeah.
Ian, how about some other tools? You've mentioned Pay2 and how that
Yeah.
sort of plays into this real-time space. What about things like bank-to-bank integrations, confirmation of payee even?
Yeah.
How do you think that plays into this?
COP's really important. I think, Joel, we had a conversation about this recently, Phil. I'm not sure if it has a lot of relevance, but you want to know who you're paying in real time. So you want to ensure that the BSB and account number that's been provided to you is not only accurate, valid, but is for the person you want. So it has a great use case in terms of fraud and scam protection, which unfortunately we're just coming out of the golden age of fraud and scam. We're starting to get a handle on it, but it was pretty bad for a few years. I think some of the stats were upwards of $3 billion a year in fraud and scam of Australians, which is tragic considering it typically hits the the most vulnerable people in society. But now with COP, you're able to make sure that the person that you're paying is who they say they are, and it matches up with an invoice. A classic use case is you get an invoice for Bunnings versus Bunning, or a simple difference which can be validated by a COP can help you avoid a huge mistake in who you're paying. But then there's also some very simple tools that COP can do, which is like, Phil, I'm not sure how you capture the bank accounts that you want to pay, whether it's typed in with the BSB and account number, but you misstroke, and that seamless, fast experience, if you haven't checked that bank account before, can all of a sudden be held up in 5 hours of customer service support to correct, to find out what that BSB was, and it delays that. So at the point of onboarding those BSB and account numbers, you can make sure that they actually entered it in correctly the first time, and ensure that when the time for payment occurs, nothing is going to go wrong, and that your customer does get the experience that they're expecting. I'm sure that, Joel, like Refundid, you guys have some compliance requirements in terms of paying back to bank accounts that could have some ramifications on your relationship with your merchant, but your merchant's customers as well, if you don't get those BSBs right.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, COP's a very, very interesting one for us because, to your point, there's a user journey. At the end of the user journey, the customer does provide those details, and for us, it's kind of like, how do we make sure that customers entering the right details, are paying the right people? We take on that risk, we take on that fraud, so it's in our best interest to make sure that we actually are paying it to the right person, paying it to the right account, doing what we need to do from like a legal obligation perspective, but just from like an overall operational efficiency perspective. So, I once again, kind of what we talked about, there's an enormous amount of opportunity to utilize that banking knowledge, that banking infrastructure, to not only get more secure payments, but just streamline the customer experience. Back to that point of just making the best customer experience possible. It's like, there's reasons that the customer, we basically want to remove any reason for the customer not to be able to use the platform. They shouldn't be restricted. They shouldn't have to jump through hurdles to be able to get their instant refund. They should be able to do it quickly, fast, and efficiently if there's no reason they shouldn't. So it's a big kind of sticking point for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've also mentioned that you've recently integrated with Connect ID. So, keen to hear your thoughts on how confirmation of payee sort of plays into that and plays into, looking at identity and trust, especially in your ecosystem.
Yeah, no, for sure. Connect ID has been an interesting one just because I know they're quite new to the ecosystem. And I think we were potentially one of the first ones to implement it into the flow. And yeah, it's been a very, very interesting experience from a customer's lens. I think it's been quite positive, just being able to give customer that familiarity with banking logos, with platforms they're used to. It connects to their banking app. It's quite involved, and just helps to build that piece of trust. And I think the more that we can kind of intertwine the user journey into tools that they understand, they're familiar with, and they know, which I know COP is quite heavily kind of related to, the more it kind of just helps to streamline the process for the consumer. Whenever we onboard customers, whenever users join, we have quite a high repeat user rate is about 50%. So only 1 in every 2 people are actually signing up. But those people who are signing up, we want to make sure that they feel comfortable, they see reputable brands, they understand who they're dealing with. And I think the more we can kind of relate it back to the infrastructure and tech that they're used to, their bank account, their banking app and stuff like that, and be affiliated with those, the smoother the process is for the customer. So it's been quite a positive situation for us.
Yeah, awesome. Phil, would love to get your thoughts on confirmation of payee. Ian sort of highlighted, potential use cases and payments to vets, for example.
Yeah, look, I think it's anything, I think, which is enhancing trust and security in the system makes a difference to us, especially when you've got fundamentally kind of new financial flow processes. And so for us, the certainty of accuracy is important, because of course then it actually allows us to go faster and to actually implement the changes in the product. So I think it's an important step forward. But I think there's still plenty of innovation, isn't there, to come. And Ian's point around frauds is obviously a pretty critical one too, because that for us is a killer, because it just comes back to the customers in the end anyway, right? Especially in insurance. And so I think where we can actually get greater certainty and put a greater trust in the system, then it's a big step forward.
Yep, awesome. Look,
It's interesting that every single part of payments so often boils down to a cost, a perceived cost per transaction. But like everything about whenever we talk to our merchants with this new emerging payments or real-time payments becoming emerging, is it all boils down to the customer experience and ensuring that the customer flow happens absolutely smoothly. And cards have done an exceptional job doing it with their scheme rules and protections and everything. But with A2A now, real-time A2A being available and emerging in real use cases, in broad and expansive use cases, it always boils down to that it's an uplift over the existing rails for the consumer, and then ultimately flows to the merchant. So it's always good to hear everybody's perspective on how it fits in.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've got a couple of minutes left. So any last words before we wrap up? Oh, that was your last word. Okay.
I got nothing left. I'm out.
Have you got a bold prediction for us, Ian? That'd be good.
No. I'm notoriously wrong on my predictions, so I'll keep them to myself.
You got to hedge your bets. Yeah. All right.
Cup will be amazing. It'll be the biggest product release this year. How about that?
Love it. Well, let's actually wrap things up. And on that note, Ian, our next webinars will be on Zepto Validate, which is confirmation of payee. And we have another one on our latest findings from our next edition of our Pay to Index report as well. So stay tuned for that. Phil, Joel, Ian, thank you so much for bringing your time, expertise, and points of view into the discussion today. And thank you, everyone in the audience here. You're taking your time out. You're taking your lunch time out to, listen to us talk. So thank you so much. We love talking about payments here at Zepto. That's it for today. So thank you, everyone. We will see you next time.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Phil.